So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. Again, he's showing that the Old Testament or the Old Covenant has to be re-seen, has to be renewed. It has to be seen really in the light of the truth of principle, the light of science, a new sense of what that law really is. Here we are at the point, the subtone of soul, principle as soul, under the impulsion of truth. And all through the text, you begin to see that he says, "But I say unto you." But I say unto you, you see. So he's contrasting that. What is that? So you have statements like, he's saying to them, "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old." See, there you have the tradition of the elders, the Mishnah. "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old. It hath been said. Again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time. Ye have heard that it hath been said," and then he'll say what they said. And then he'll say, "But I say unto you." See? "But I say unto you." What is that I, that ego, that divine I? It's that I that is one with the Father, isn't it? I and the Father are one. And so if it's the same teaching, if you are taught by me, you've been taught by the Father. And that seems very egotistical, but it's the very opposite. There's no ego in that. There's only the one ego, the I of the Father, you see. "But I say unto you," that divine principle, the I of the divine principle, is what is speaking and what is teaching. He is addressing all of those issues at this point and retranslating, you see, at the point of principle as soul under the impulsion of truth. There's a retranslation in that Christ order going on, translating everything back into its true form, its original form, into the original law of God. It's here that he says, "Ye are the salt of the earth." All those wonderful renderings that we love. "Ye are the salt of the earth. Ye are the light of the world. Ye are a city," you see, "a city set on a hill that cannot be hid. No man puts his light under a bushel to hide it." In other words, principle is not going to organize and form you scientifically as a scientific consciousness and then not enable you and demand of you that this consciousness be operative, that it express itself, that it be what it is. So it is a scientific consciousness. "It giveth light unto all. Let your light shine." Light, it's a sense of light giving light. So you hear the identity principle there, very much as principle as soul in the Christ translation, the identity principle, the seed within itself. Yes, and then coming to the climax of that subtone of principle as truth, you see that, principle as soul under the impulsion of truth, that principle as soul is retranslating an old method, the old method of the law, the old logic of the law, into the new, into the true. And he shows really the outcome of that, the outcome that is within the Christ translation at the point of mind, where you have it's principle, life, truth, love, soul, spirit, mind, and you have the manifestation of mind really at the point of the Christ as science. And one gets a feeling, a tonality there, that there's a great touch of love, as though he would be presenting a new method and a new logic that has to do with love. And it's really something about the equipollence of love. You could look at this in Matthew 5, verse 37, starting with verse 37, because he says, "Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay." You hear that? Now this is, to my sense, it's love. The yea, yea, and the nay, nay. The I am and the I am not. Huh? The I am and the I am not. Huh? So, yeah, you hear it, huh? And then he compares, he gives the old logic. "Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at law, and take away thy coat, let him have your cloak too. Give him your cloak also." It's a new logic. So he's saying, take that teaching now that I have given you. Take that word of what we saw at the point of the word, the blessed benediction, the statement of the blessedness of the divine principle, the principle of the science of being. Take that. Always come out from that. If you come out from it according to the Beatitudes, according to fulfilling the true requirements of the Word, that this will have substance. This is real. And begin to take that as your numerals of infinity, the values, the divine, the spiritual values with which you work. Calculate with those. Calculate rightly. Calculate according to the Christ, according to the calculus of being, according to the fourfold operation of being. And if you do that, you will always have the right result in every case. You'll always have the right result, and you will see that you live in the realm of that field of the results of the Word and the Christ, and that's Christianity. And finally he comes to the standpoint of science as science, to principle, and says, "Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man." This is a wise man. This is a scientific man, huh? This is scientific man. A wise man that builds his house upon a rock. Upon a rock. Upon a calculus. And that's just what it is. Building on the calculus. It's the four. And the rain descended, the floods came, the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not. Nothing can knock that down, for it was founded upon a rock. It's building on principle, building on something that's so fundamental it can never be touched or overthrown. It can't be moved by the shifting sands of human reasoning. It can't be tossed to and fro. False systems can't touch it. Human material theories can't touch it. But he says, every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rains came, and the floods, and so forth, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. It's just a beautiful sense of climaxing everything into one principle. And it came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine. They were overwhelmed by the system, the structure, the science that he was teaching. Perhaps they didn't recognize it as we recognize it today. They wouldn't have heard it in terms of capitalized terms and categories, capitalized categories, but they would have heard the spiritual touch of it, felt it, and they knew that this was a new doctrine, the true doctrine, the one that had been intended by the Word of God. For he taught them as one having authority. How can you have authority? Only if you are one with that teaching yourself. And that was his authority, that he had come out of that wilderness experience and was completely one with the Word of God and had that authority of the divine principle, and not as the scribes. So that's the conclusion of the tone of principle and of the Sermon on the Mount. There's much there that we didn't take, all the specifics and so forth, but can you feel, I just, in recently going over it again, was quite taken by the clarity, the distinctness of the four orders being there, and that this would have constituted his teaching, that he actually presented, we could say, the constituents of the matrix, if you know the Dorley matrix, He gave the four orders. We know that those orders reflect each other. We haven't brought that out. I don't know whether that's in the text or not, quite honestly. But he gave the essential constituency of that matrix because he gave the four orders in Matthew. All right, well, that's the teaching, that's the demonstration of principle, and you can see what love is intending, what love's purpose is, what love's goal is, to bring us to the standpoint of science. Science which always gathers up the Word, Christ, and Christianity into one and begins to take the time sense out, doesn't it? It takes the time sense out of the sequentialness of those first three orders. So that is love's a great goal, and it does that. Science always does what it does through the Word and the Christ and Christianity.